Follow us to uncover success stories, expert advice, and practical insights to elevate your brand. This is the Influencer Podcast, your guide to mastering influence and transforming your business. Stay tuned.
Right, so you want to kind of like figure out how to build a successful marketplace, huh?
Well, we've got tons of insights from Casey Winters.
Oh yeah, Casey Winters, he's like the growth expert.
Yeah, exactly. He's helped scale, companies like Grubhub and Pinterest.
Huge companies.
Yeah, so this deep dive is going to be a bit different. We're going to make this as straightforward and understandable as possible.
Yeah, so if you're listening, like, get ready for some surprising twists.
What's really interesting to me is how marketplaces aren't, just about connecting buyers and sellers. It's a whole delicate ecosystem. Yeah. It has its own, set of rules.
So it's not as easy as like, I have a cool app idea, boom, marketplace.
No. There's more to it.
Okay.
Casey highlights a few non-negotiables for marketplace success.
Yeah.
The first, you need what's called fragmented supply.
Fragmented supply. Okay.
So think of tons of restaurants versus, just a few airlines.
Right.
You want variety.
Yeah.
You want options galore for buyers.
That makes sense.
So lots of sellers.
Lots of sellers.
But what about the buyers?
Yeah, what about them?
They need a reason to keep coming back.
Okay.
High frequency demand.
High frequency.
Meaning buyers use the service often, or at least they're open to trying different providers within the marketplace.
So like ordering food.
Yeah.
You're probably not ordering from the same restaurant every night.
Exactly.
Right.
Now here's where things get even more interesting.
Okay, let's go.
Casey talks about a sustainable advantage in acquiring either supply or demand.
Sustainable advantage, okay.
It's not about, throwing money at ads.
Right.
It's about finding a clever edge.
A clever edge, like what would be an example?
Let's look at Grubhub.
Right.
Grubhub cleverly used menu data to dominate search results for food delivery.
Oh, interesting.
They became the place to find what you were craving.
Wow.
So
they used information that was already out there to their advantage.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Exactly.
I like it.
Another example is Fair.
Okay, fair.
Which is a B2B marketplace.
B2B, okay.
They nailed their referral system.
Oh, okay.
They onboarded brands and boutiques for free.
Really free?
Yeah, this created a ripple effect that drew in even more participants organically.
So they grew without huge marketing spend.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
It's all about that sustainable growth.
Right.
Fair found a way to get suppliers on board without breaking the bank, which then attracted more buyers, leading to even more suppliers. It's like a beautiful cycle.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So how early on does a marketplace need to figure out this secret sauce, this acquisition edge?
The earlier the better. Ideally from day one.
From day one?
You need to bake this into your core strategy.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to experiment. Yeah. Even if it means starting with things that, might not be scalable at first.
Like Tony from DoorDash hand-delivering those early meals?
Exactly.
Wow, talk about dedication.
Sometimes even an imperfect product can validate a market need.
Right.
It's about offering enough selection or convenience to hook those early adopters.
Hook them in. So it's not just about building this fancy software. It's about finding that sweet spot where supply and demand are just flowing seamlessly.
Yeah, you're building an ecosystem.
And an ecosystem.
Early on, keep a close eye on conversion rates.
Okay.
Supplier retention. And whether buyers are coming back for more.
Okay.
These are your early indicators of success.
Gotcha. Okay, but before we get ahead of ourselves and start planning, world domination.
Right.
Casey has some words of caution. Right.
Yes, he warns against two major pitfalls that can trip up even the most promising marketplaces.
All right.
Relying too heavily on discounts.
Okay.
And expanding too quickly into new markets or categories.
So resist the temptation to offer discounts all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. It might seem like an easy win, but it can actually mask your true value proposition.
Oh.
And make customers addicted to cheap prices.
Oh, so you don't want to train them to think that you're always going to be cheap.
Exactly.
Okay.
And expanding too quickly can spread your resources thin.
Yeah.
Leading to a lack of focus.
Right, like trying to juggle too many balls at once, you're bound to drop a few.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this raises a critical question.
What's that?
Are you genuinely solving a problem, or are you just creating the illusion of growth?
The illusion.
Discipline and focus are key, especially in the early stages.
So you need to choose your battles wisely and make sure you have a solid foundation before you start branching out.
Absolutely. And to really understand these dynamics, Casey digs into some fascinating case studies.
Oh, yes. I love case studies.
He dissects companies like Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber, Lyft, even a niche marketplace for Funko Pops.
Wait, Funko Pops?
Yeah.
What? I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
I need to hear more about this.
Yeah. Each case study reveals strategic decisions,
Okay.
both brilliant and flawed, that shaped these companies.
Right.
By examining their journeys, we can start to see those recurring patterns of success and failure.
So it's not enough to just have a good idea. You need to be able to adapt and learn from both your own experiences and like those of others.
Yeah, it's a constant dance.
Oh, what dance?
I like it. Between optimizing for short-term gains and making those bold moves that shape the long-term landscape.
Bold moves.
But before we dive into those case studies, let's take a quick pause. We'll be right back to dissect what those marketplace giants did right and where they went wrong.
All right. Sounds good. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm ready to dig into those case studies.
All right.
But before we do,
you
mentioned earlier about like avoiding common marketplace blunders.
Right.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So one common mistake is neglecting data analysis.
Okay, data analysis.
Marketplaces, they generate a wealth of information.
Right.
User behavior transactions, supply and demand fluctuations.
Yeah.
Understanding these nuances is like critical for making smart decisions.
So it's not enough to just like track overall growth.
Right.
You have to look deeper.
You have to look deeper, especially when you start expanding into different categories or regions.
Okay.
Aggregate data can be misleading.
Okay.
You need to break it down.
Uh-huh.
Analyze trends by city, by category.
Wow.
Even by acquisition channel.
Okay.
This tells you what's really working and what needs attention.
Otherwise, you might think everything's going great.
Right.
When really one successful category is masking a bunch of underperforming ones.
Exactly.
So,
another pitfall is failing to track the right activation metrics.
Activation metrics.
For both supply and demand.
Okay.
It's not just about attracting users.
Right.
It's about making sure they actively engage and transact on your platform.
What do you mean by activation metrics?
Think of it as like the tipping point.
Okay.
Where a supplier or buyer becomes truly engaged. For example, at Grubhub, they discovered that restaurants needed at least 2 orders per day.
2 orders per day.
To be considered activated.
Oh, wow.
Below that, churn rates increased, meaning all those acquisition efforts were wasted.
So they were spending all this money getting restaurants on the platform, but if they weren't getting at least 2 orders a day, they were leaving.
Exactly.
Wow.
So you need to figure out that magic number for your own marketplace.
A magic number.
The level of activity that signals a user is going to stick around.
Okay.
And remember that discounting trap we talked about?
Yeah.
That's another big one.
Okay.
While it might seem like a quick way to boost numbers, it can actually backfire.
I'm starting to see the discounts are not always the answer.
You're getting it.
Okay.
Constantly offering discounts can cheapen your brand.
Yeah.
And condition customers to expect low prices.
Right.
It undermines your value proposition. Instead of highlighting what makes your marketplace unique, you're stuck competing on price or race to the bottom. Wow.
Nobody wins.
Yeah.
So how do you know when discounts are a good idea versus a bad idea?
Right. When do you use them?
It's all about understanding user psychology.
Okay.
At Grubhub, they found that offering a discount on a user's first mobile order was actually a smart move.
Interesting.
Because using the app correlated with higher frequency and retention.
So they weren't just attracting like the bargain hunters, they were trying to incentivize a behavior.
Exactly.
That would then lead to more engagement.
Exactly. It's about being strategic.
Right.
Use discounts to nudge users towards actions that benefit both them and your marketplace.
Okay. I like that, strategic discounts.
All right, so we've covered data analysis, activation metrics, strategic discounting.
Yes.
What other landmines should we be aware of?
Lay it on me.
Expansion.
Expansion.
The temptation to conquer new markets is strong.
Oh, yeah.
But expanding prematurely can be disastrous.
Okay.
It's like building a house on shaky ground.
Oh, yeah.
You need a solid foundation before you start adding floors. So resist the urge to launch in like a new city just because your current city is doing well.
Exactly. Before you even think about expanding, you need a solid playbook.
A playbook.
A clear understanding of what worked in your initial market and how to replicate that success elsewhere.
So it's not just copy and paste. You need to like break down the process.
Right.
Identify the key elements.
Yeah.
And make sure they can work in a new environment.
You nailed it.
Okay.
And until you have that battle-tested playbook, Focus on one market or category at a time.
Okay.
Thoroughly test your assumptions and learn as you go.
Measure twice, cut once.
Exactly.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with like the complexities of a marketplace.
Now, before we move on to those case studies, there's one more critical aspect we need to address.
Okay.
Understanding user psychology.
User psychology.
Remember, marketplaces involve multiple parties.
Okay.
Buyers, sellers, and the platform itself.
Right.
Each with their own motivations.
So it's like a delicate dance trying to balance the needs of everyone involved.
To truly succeed, you need to get inside their heads.
Okay.
What are their pain points? What are their aspirations? What makes them tick? This is where qualitative research, customer interviews, and user feedback become invaluable.
So don't just rely on the numbers.
Right.
Get out there and talk to your users.
Yes.
Understand their experiences and their motivations.
And this ties back to something Casey emphasized.
Okay.
Owning demand.
Owning demand.
While it's important to have a strong supply side, ultimately it's the demand side that fuels the engine.
Because without buyers, there is no marketplace.
Precisely. You need to build a marketplace that not only offers a wide selection, but also delivers a seamless, enjoyable experience that keeps buyers coming back for more.
Okay, so we've got data analysis, activation metrics, strategic discounting, expansion playbooks, understanding user psychology. Anything else we're missing before we delve into those case studies?
Let's not forget the power of brand and community.
Oh, brand and community.
Marketplaces thrive on trust and reputation.
Yeah.
And that's something you need to cultivate from day one.
So it's more than just transaction.
Yes.
It's about creating a sense of belonging.
Yes.
A community of people who share a common interest or passion.
Think about it like a movement, a tribe of like-minded individuals who are drawn to what your marketplace represents.
This is all making me realize how much more goes into building a successful marketplace than I initially thought.
Yeah.
It's not just about connecting buyers and sellers.
Right.
It's about creating like a thriving ecosystem that benefits everyone involved.
And remember, the landscape is constantly evolving. What works today might not work tomorrow.
Right.
You need to stay adaptable.
Okay.
Keep learning and be willing to experiment.
All right. I'm ready to learn from the best.
Okay.
Let's finally dig into those case studies and see how these principles play out in the real world. Okay, so let's talk case studies.
Yeah, let's start with Grubhub.
Okay, Grubhub.
They were early to the food delivery game.
Right.
But they faced like a classic marketplace challenge.
Okay.
The chicken and the egg.
The chicken and the egg, I've heard of this.
You need enough restaurants to attract diners.
Right.
But you also need enough diners to entice restaurants to sign up.
Right, it's like, which comes first?
Exactly.
So how do they solve that?
Data. They understood the power of owning demand. They focused on creating a comprehensive database of menus. Remember when you used to have to call a restaurant to get their menu?
Oh, yeah, I do actually.
Grubhub digitized that.
Okay.
This made them the go-to destination for anyone searching for delivery options online.
Interesting.
So they made themselves indispensable to the diners, which then attracted more restaurants.
Brilliant.
But they didn't stop there.
What else did they do?
They also understood the importance of activation metrics.
Right.
They knew that restaurants needed a certain volume of orders to be successful on the platform.
Okay.
So they focused on optimizing the user experience to drive more orders and keep both sides of the marketplace happy.
Keep everybody happy.
Keep everybody happy.
I like it.
Now, what about DoorDash?
Okay, DoorDash, yeah. How did they approach things differently?
DoorDash focused on a different kind of edge.
Okay.
Speed and convenience. They were willing to deliver from pretty much anywhere.
Really?
Even if it meant Tony, the founder, was doing the deliveries himself in the early days.
Talk about bootstrapping.
Right.
Wow.
But it paid off.
It did.
They built a reputation for fast delivery, which was especially appealing in dense urban areas.
Makes sense.
They also invested heavily in their driver network,
okay,
ensuring a smooth and reliable delivery experience.
So while Grubhub focused on owning demand, DoorDash focused on like owning the logistics side of the equation.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
Now let's jump over to ride sharing.
Okay.
With Uber and Lyft.
Uber, Lyft, all right.
Both companies were early disruptors.
Huge.
But they took different paths to growth.
Okay. How so?
Uber was aggressive.
Okay.
Prioritizing expansion and using surge pricing to incentivize drivers during peak hours.
Right.
And wasn't Uber also known for being, well, a bit controversial in their approach.
They definitely, push the boundaries a little bit.
They certainly weren't afraid to push boundaries both legally and ethically.
Right.
This helped them gain market share quickly.
Yeah.
But it also created some backlash.
Makes sense.
Lyft, on the other hand, positioned themselves as the friendlier alternative.
The friendly Uber.
Right.
Interesting.
Different strategies, different brand perceptions.
Yeah.
But both ultimately successful in creating thriving marketplaces.
Yeah, they really changed the game.
And now for a complete contrast.
Okay, hit me.
Let's look at that niche marketplace for Funko Pops.
Yes. The Funko Pops tell me everything.
They understood the power of community and hyper-focused on a specific, passionate audience.
Most Funko Pop people, they're passionate.
Right.
They love their Funko Pops.
They tapped into the collector's mindset.
Yeah.
Funko Pops already had a strong following, but the marketplace created a space for enthusiasts to connect, trade, and show off their collections.
Sure.
This sense of community fueled organic growth and engagement.
Wow. It's amazing how these seemingly simple platforms connecting buyers and sellers can become such complex and fascinating ecosystems.
And remember, there's no one-size-fits-all formula for success.
Right.
What works for one marketplace might not work for another.
Right.
It's about understanding the unique dynamics of your users, and your value proposition.
So what's like the key takeaway here for someone listening to this, hoping to build their own successful marketplace?
Here's a final thought to ponder.
Okay, I'm ready.
Think about Zillow and their Zestimate.
Okay, Zillow's estimate.
It's not essential for buying or selling a home, but it creates a powerful, ongoing connection with users.
Yeah.
Even in a low-frequency market like real estate.
That's true. People aren't buying and selling houses every day.
Right.
Yeah.
So what seemingly insignificant detail could you introduce to create that kind of enduring engagement?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a great question to leave our listeners with.
I think so.
It's all about finding those little touches.
Yeah.
Those unexpected moments of delight.
Right.
That can make all the difference.
Absolutely.
So whether you're building the next Airbnb or just trying to understand the forces shaping the marketplace landscape, remember, it's about creating a dynamic, thriving ecosystem that benefits everyone involved.
And as always, stay curious, keep learning, and never stop experimenting.
Some great advice.
Thank you.
Well, this has been another fascinating deep dive into the world of marketplaces.
It has.
Thank you for joining us. We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration.